Today's panel is about getting acquired. I think as entrepreneurs, we all want to go public. We all want to have these massive unicorn events. But the reality is most startups end up getting acquired. And I think we have a great panel here to talk about those experiences as it relates to thinking about getting acquired, what it takes, the process, and the outcome. So if we can go across and everybody give a brief introduction of yourself.
Good to be here. I'm Heikki Haldre. I've founded 6 companies in the past, exited 4 of them. The last one, FitsMe, was helping the fashion e-commerce with its virtual fitting room technology. We raised 16 million in funding for this, acquired 1 company in the process, we're almost close to acquiring 2 more, and then got ourselves acquired by the world's 5th largest e-commerce company based in Japan, Rakuten. So I've been in both sides of the table a little bit.
Hi, my name is Baris, Aksoy. I spent all my career in entrepreneurial ecosystem, either as a product guy, investor, or a CFO, and most recently. I was on the investment side. I was running investments for consumer internet globally at Intact Capital, and most recently at covering a specific region, Turkey, Middle East, and North Africa, for all areas of investments. And probably spent a lot of time dealing with companies, and I was thinking about, before coming on stage, I have 5 to 6 exits out of the investments we've done. Some of them are public, so I was less involved, but I was involved in a lot of the M&A as an investor, as a board member. And most recently, I was a CFO of a company, kind of like a European-American company, doing video supply chain SaaS solution for broadcasters, programmers. I was a CFO of the company that we sold it to Google, and that happened last year, and that kind of gave me a very different vantage point. Even though I've been doing a lot of exits and also been in this space for a while, being on the other side has its own different dynamics, different nuances, I guess, needs to be really, you need to pay attention to. So that's, now I'm at Google, and we're running strategic deals for Google Cloud, doing media and entertainment deals. And also, I'm working with 2 of my colleagues here, Indrek Jaska and Herti Tamo, who is the founder of Startup Wise Guys, who are building a really cool first early stage venture fund. And we're working together with them how to help the companies in Estonia to scale up globally in the US.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Martin Rand. I'm the co-founder and now commercial director of Vitalfields. And Vitalfields creates farm management software for farmers, actually. That's why the productivity is so high. And what we do is we help farmers plan and organize and analyze field work. And what European farmers are especially interested in is we automate their compliance reporting for them to get EU subsidies. EU is a very heavily subsidized agricultural market. And we were acquired last year in November by the fastest growing agtech company geographically in the world, named the Climate Corporation.
Hey, my name is Sten Tamkivi, and I'm a VP at a company called Move Guides, and I've been in that job for 6 weeks. Since they acquired my company, Teleport, that I co-founded and was the CEO of. And in the past, I've seen a few ownership changes while inside Skype. And I actually sold my first company I started my first company when I was 18, and I sold it when I was 19. So
Nice.
that somehow these acquisitions are a threat.
So it's funny, we're running a panel, we're emailing each other around questions and what should we talk about, and I think we broke it down into kind of 3, like what to think about in terms of, am I selling my company, am I being bought, like the front end of the equation, and what that looks like. And I think part of it, for startups is, how does that even look? I think the advice I give entrepreneurs is run a company like you're running it forever, but keep an eye out for opportunities, because it's hard to build a company to sell. You really have to just act like you're running it forever, although none of us ever will, probably. So what do you think in terms of looking at positioning your company, and the idea is a company bought or is it sold, and kind of the leverage point for an entrepreneur, how do they get going and thinking about selling their company?
It's, well, people tend to say that companies are being bought and never sold, right? So when you start the day, you can't think of, I'm going to go and sell my company. I'm going to have to make my company profitable. I'm going to have to make this company do something useful for the world, for the clients, and then the sale just happens. In Fitzme's case, it was almost out of the blue when, after meeting the CEO of this Japanese company, a few weeks later, his right hand gives me a call and asks, have we considered getting acquired? Honestly, I was super glad that it was a phone call, because my face was doing this big smile. And on the phone, I was trying to master my most serious voice, saying, oh no, this is not the time to get acquired. We are in the growth mode. In fact, what I knew was that our upcoming investment round would have likely be a failure. Mm-hmm. And in the talks, we were preparing taking the company through bankruptcy. Okay. And possible management buyout. Mm-hmm. We had also another potential acquirer on the table at this moment. But that was my co-founder afterwards described it as if unicorns hopping on double rainbow. Have you seen double rainbows recently with unicorns on it? So we had our other plan Bs, but that was certainly the best of them.
But you knew, in your gut, you knew it was time.
Well, it was certainly a time. Otherwise,
be done.
Be done, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's not impossible to get sold. There's always a way until you keep trying.
Right. So what happens when Google calls and says, I want to buy your company?
No, it doesn't happen
is that how that
way,
works?
Sometimes. So it's, what you ask is the company's bought or sold. Yeah. It's a terrible answer, but it depends, right? There are companies who get bought, and most likely those companies who are bought gets a higher premium. That's the case. There are companies who get the call, who take and demand whatever the terms are and can really drive the deal. And there's a study, I think, it used to be a less division in terms of the first one got sold, the second one got sold in a market. It's almost first one gets 50%, the second one gets 30%, the other one gets 20%. And now, I think the study was 60 to 70% was the first one got sold. Mm-hmm. Right, then the rest starts getting the market. It's just they're trying to generalize it, but there's definitely a case where some companies got both, and they demand high premiums. And then majority of the other companies, 95% maybe, they get sold, right? We run a process, we go through it, we collect interest, we demand the competition, we drive the competition. And so in our case, in the last one, Anvato was a multiple offers, and Google was one of them. But prior, I had one company, OpenFeign, that was one of my first investment. I was super lucky. I didn't do anything. I just picked the company mistakenly, I guess. They got both. They end up going to Tokyo to meet. It was a gaming company. Meet with Gree. The CEOs, they loved each other, and we didn't. I put the money in October. They started talking about acquisition in December, and then there was a nuclear plant blew off around February, and then they evaded the whole Tokyo almost, and then we closed the deal in April. Wow. So that was a company that got both.
Yeah.
No one did anything. But majority of the other ones, all the exits pretty much I done. Is like you need to really drive the demand, and that doesn't need to be it's a bad exit. It's like you could really drive a good amount of I think value, but you really need to run the process. You need to. I mean, we can talk about other options, but you need to really run the process carefully to sell your company.
Absolutely, Martin.
So we are one of the, I think, one of the very few exits in Estonia who had. And Vitalfields has always been an Estonian company, so we never did the flip. We never, we don't have a legal body in London or Delaware. So being here in Estonia and getting noticed is a kind of, you really have to do something like Skype, so somebody would just call you up. I think entrepreneurs need to be visible. We got acquired by a company that is based in San Francisco. So I went to a lot of conferences there, mainly to do fundraising, but always, of course, in the back of your head, the idea of an exit is also there. And so you're sort of slowly preparing for that also. Being visible and understanding what the potential acquirers might want to do. So in the case of Climate Corporation, they were expanding to Canada, to Brazil, and Europe was a big untapped market, and we were one of the few agtech companies who were in many countries simultaneously. So the entrepreneurs need to be visible, and I think competition is also the key element what kicks this process off. Because I think the majority of the companies don't track possible acquisition targets. They rather act on an opportunity, and the competition provides this incentive to act.
For us, I think if you zoom back out, a CEO of a startup has just a few jobs, really. Like the first job is to set the vision of the company and sort of formulate what the mission is and start working towards that, and that's what founders do. The second job is to build the organization, get the right people on board and have them working with that. And the third job is to ensure that there's money in the bank account. And I see acquisitions as a very sort of pragmatic option in that mix. So in case of Teleport last year, we were working in parallel, like looking forward, we had raised a $2.6 million seed round. We were spending it at a very careful pace, and we got a really good runway out of that. But then last year we were looking at, okay, should we extend the seed? Do we have the numbers in order to raise an A? And always the cheapest capital you can get is the money from your clients. So can we actually start selling enough that we can extend our runway ourselves? And the way we started working with Move Guys was in that latter bucket. So it's a relationship that started looking at what we had built. We're building and are building tools for people to move around the world. And our apps are Teleport apps that are still Teleport branded, are consumer-facing tools for figuring out where in the world you should be. And we have a lot of data behind them and 250,000 users who have populated the profiles and all these things. And we were looking at these assets, this sort of cost and quality of life data sets that we had and the software that we had built and all that. And okay, who are the people we could work with to accelerate our revenues? Who could we license this stuff to? And the corporate relocation space is extremely old school, very sort of settled. Most companies in the space have been founded 50 years ago. It's like this golf club and cigars, deal-making culture and this weird thing. So we really didn't like working with them or we didn't click with them well. But there was one company in the space, which is Move Guides, which is founded 6 years ago. And it's sort of the disruptor in the space. And we started talking with them. And in December, we handshook on a deal that let's build some software together on a commercial basis. So we had a revenue share that we laid out. And this year was looking really good on a commercial basis already. But when we started working in January, we realized that the complexity of trying to do what we wanted to do for a shared vision in two separate companies was just too high. Like, how do you split the IP? How exactly do you do the revenue sharing? Like, we have an entity in US and Estonia. They have entities or offices in London, San Francisco, Hong Kong. How do you make all of that work? So basically, very naturally, through the course of building software together in February, they came back with an acquisition offer.
Yeah.
And so from there, things moved really fast. We signed the term sheet on March 2nd. We closed the deal on March 30th, including all the contract work and due diligence and everything.
Wow.
So I think that's a signal that you really are meant to be together.
And I think that's the dating before you get married approach.
Yeah.
Right. And I think those are great models because you really, I think both parties maximize the value. Everybody kind of brought up a little bit kind of the idea of the process. And I know for startups, a lot of them approach me and say, hey, I need to raise capital. Should I hire an intermediary? My position is no, never do that as a startup. That's your job as the CEO is to raise capital. You don't hire an intermediary. But when you talk about the selling process of your startup, it's kind of controversial. A lot of people say, I can negotiate my best deal. I've yet to meet an investment banker that I wanted to go hang out with. They're just a different breed. So, how do you guys see that? Because the argument is these guys make a market for you. They go get multiple offers. They negotiate better maybe than you do. There's a lot of, you give them a percentage, but they usually pay for themselves is what a lot of people say. Have you, in the process, do you think that using an intermediary, an investment banker is beneficial? Or?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
And the reason for this is the speed of the whole process matters. Because we had all the documents in order, the process was super quick. Our whole acquisition process was 3 months,
Okay.
which is unheard of for
Yeah,
big corporation like Rakuten. And one of the acquisitions that we wanted to do, we were unable to do because that startup was too slow. Yeah. It was too slow getting the legal documents, the due diligence papers, the technology papers together. And in the end, our board simply decided, well, it's not exciting anymore. The spark had left the building by that time. So, you have to hammer when it's still hot. And this is where the investment bankers are very, very good. They won't find you the guy who's going to buy you, I think. Mm-hmm. But they will help you make the whole thing happen.
Right. Because the entrepreneur or the CEO is still running a business too, right? So as much as they want to sell the company, they have a customer, they have a hire, but that investment banker, they want their commission, right? They want the deal done. So they beat on you and make sure. So how do you feel about the bankers?
Again, as an investor, I was, in certain cases, very naive. It's like, if you hired a banker, why does the CEO keep, making us busy, going into, trying to slow down the process? Just hire the banker and he'll do the rest. Right. Right. It is, there are some bankers, again, it's like, I hate to give these answers, but Frank Quattrone at Catalyst, he makes magic happens. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like, but he doesn't take deals below billion. Right. So if you're there, you can call him up. Or, obviously the tier one banks like Goldman Sachs, Morgan, JP, Credit Suisse, and Citi. Those guys, they do have great contact. And now at being Google, I spend a lot of time with them. They keep bringing deals nonstop, right? They keep coming, hey, I now cover media and entertainment, so I see everything who's up for sale. Right. And they have connection with us. So if you're plugged into that network, it automatically comes in front of the person who can make the case to buy the deal, to buy the company. So there is definitely a benefit of having a banker like them. Mm-hmm. And then there are others. Yeah. So those are, I totally agree with what you said. There's an agency problem, right? They are coin-operated. So there are certain areas where the incentives don't align with the entrepreneurs, and in those cases, what happens? How do you make sure this guy is going to go push for you? Right. And if I'm the banker, I'm going to go sell him multiple companies. Why do I need to, hurt my relationship just for your company? I'm going to sell these other two too, right? So I need to make him happy. So in certain cases, I might be a little bit more aligned to him, right? Mm-hmm. In that cases, I don't. Unless you get the top guy, yes, I'm up for bankers. But on the other hand, if you're a smaller company, there are a bunch of other resources. Your board members, hopefully they have some experience. Entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
These guys have sold it, and they love to tell their story, and I'm sure they try to help other entrepreneurs to avoid the mistakes they made.
Yeah.
Right? Because you always had that hunch, is like, oh, I could have done this better.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to tell the other guy to not to make that mistake. Or there are advisors, right? There are advisors who can be maybe not a banker, but more incentivized with the options versus minimum transaction fee. So these guys will, rather than getting something regardless, they will get money when the company gets sold at the right price.
Whenever I get emails from entrepreneurs, and subject line is time for coffee, and that either means they're shutting down their startup, they're raising money, or they're trying to sell it, right? So I think other entrepreneurs that have been there can help a lot.
I totally agree, and it's someone mentioned, I can't remember, but it's like you need to be on the radar. You need to be out there. I mean, you going to the conferences helped a lot, because there are cases all the time. It's like a big company wants to fill a gap, expand to either product or geography-wise, and they want to buy something. And if you are not in the radar, if they don't know you, and if you don't have a banker keep telling them like, hey, you need to look at this company, you're not in the radar. They don't even know you, and unless they do some kind of a research on the market, and if they come across you, great. If not, you are not considered. That's a big risk, because it's not about you wanting to sell. You're competing with me today. Tomorrow I got bought by Google. Now you're competing with Google.
Right.
That is not good. Right, that is not good for you, right? Because I have very little resources before, and now suddenly I have a total different drive.
Right.
Right. That was one of the reasons we ended up selling. We had the company I was with. We didn't want to sell. Mm-hmm. We were super profitable, and I think in 12 months we used to compete with A, B, C, and those A, B, C became Amazon, Verizon, and IBM. In 12 months. So suddenly things change. When they get into any deal, they will not, compete for price or anything. It's like whatever you want. Prices go down. We can't survive in an environment like that. So that's why we decided to sell. So things change. So you need to really have that visibility consistently.
Martin?
We had a banker. I think entrepreneurs shouldn't definitely have a banker when raising money, like you said. But with an exit, it's a big process. It's a big, long, tiring process. So it's good to have somebody to support you. And the acquirer was in San Francisco. We're in Estonia. There are no overlapping working hours, 10-hour difference. So it's good to have somebody there that can facilitate the whole thing. So we had a banker. I was satisfied with that. Next time, though, I probably would do it myself, because sort of it's a different set of signals that a founder can give out versus what a banker can give out. And I think I would rather hire an M&A lawyer to facilitate.
Yeah, interesting. Do you think that part of the thing, they're not just buying the company, in many cases they're buying you, and having that person in the middle doesn't communicate, hey, I'm excited about the transaction, I want to come, I'm excited about, like in your case, you were dating before you did the deal. You were able to kind of communicate, hey, this will be fun, we'll go work together, we'll make a lot of money together. Someone in the middle doesn't really do that well.
Yeah, our helper structure was very simple. Like our investment bankers were our current investors. So our seed round was led by Andreessen Horowitz. Andreessen Horowitz has an in-house corporate development team. Yep. So like for all the stuff that you would normally go to an investment banker, like we could just call up our own friends, and they did a stellar job of sort of helping us understand the marketplace, what these offers are comparable to, and what else is out there and all these things. But the good news is that the incentives are already aligned. Like they are not working for a percentage of the deal, right. They are working to maximize their own outcome, and we hope that we could deliver that with the deal structure in the end. And basically having a strong lead negotiating with you or helping you with the negotiations was good for all our angels and the other early investors as well. Because like if you have a party around the angels, then you will not get that sort of institutional help in an exit process. Then we also had lawyers, and as mentioned, because of the geographic diff, we had lawyers in US, in UK, and in Estonia, which basically, as I said, like as a CEO, if you're maximizing the cash in the bank, then if you have to do that and the deal falls through in the 11th hour, then you're dead. like you're just burning through all the cash on the deal structuring. And you really can't do without that. And we were very, very happy with the contribution from the lawyers, but I also sort of reassured my past learnings that, like there are, as you say, there are some things that you can't delegate.
Right.
Like there are decisions only get made by the CEOs on both sides. Like there is no point of letting lawyers of two sides to talk directly to each other. They will just rank up the hours, but nothing actually can get decided. They can only argue around the wordings on paper. So that means that in March I didn't sleep. Like with this 10-hour time zone difference, every call, everything that actually has substantial impact on the contents of the deal, the IP deal, part of the deal, the pricing of the deal, anything, you have to be on the call. And that's extremely straining, especially if the buyer is bigger than you. Then they can assign different people to talk to you about different things, but in a small startup, it's just you. And it's really straining. But I think in retrospect, one thing that it also benefits you is that if the deal is structured in a way that you will continue working together, like after you've done this together, you will have either very strong confidence that you like working with each other and the other party or your future boss is fair and you can talk about tough topics without strangling each other. And if that comes out in the process that it will not work, probably the deal falls through anyway. So.
Yeah. So, the process is, like you said, I mean, even if you don't have the time difference, the process is exhausting. You're basically working two jobs as a CEO. How did you communicate to your employees? Because they figure out something's going on, right? Either we're running out of money and you're raising a round, or something's going on. And in startup world, it's close quarters. It's really hard to hide much of anything. Were you communicating to your teams? Were you saying, hey, here's what I'm looking at? Were you transparent with your team about that, or did you just say, hey, I'm kind of busy doing some special projects? Or
The first company that I sold, we kept it all secret from the employees. And on the morning of when I was going to announce the deal, it was still the world where we had fax machines.
Okay.
There was a fax that the buyer was sending us, and that's where it leaked.
Okay.
But just a few hours later, the deal was confirmed, and I could announce it. The last one fits me, as it required everybody's cooperation. We had to put everybody's efforts together to get it sold. So obviously, all the employees knew about the process.
Okay.
I had one bad experience with my prior company where Twitter, it was like it's all in TechCrunch, so that's why I can't say it. They started interviewing the employees and everything. It got leaked, and then they decided to pass. It was a disaster.
Yes.
Right? So it was a disaster, and it's like you really need to keep it tight because someone again mentioned, I mean, deal dies on the table multiple times.
Yeah.
Right? It dies, so you need someone to do these tough messages. You need to walk away, even though CEO needs to look super excited, but someone needs to be able to say, no, we are done. This is not working. And it happens multiple times through the process. So, and one of them, in like Twitter case, it didn't work out. So the company was publicly, everyone knew about it, and engineers knew about it. Then they decided to pass. It was a disaster, but that company got sold to someone else afterwards, Yellow Pages. But in this case, we kept it secret all the way to the last 2-3 days.
Yeah.
And it was a logistic advantage because we had multiple offices, and one of the offices we were mainly spending time was the smaller one, and that's where we camped. And one of the things, I mean, I highly recommend trying to push a lot of the due diligence upfront and everything. So once you sign that exclusive letter, you're screwed, right? You have no power almost. So, and along with that, you need to be able to resist the fact that you're not going to allow any interviews or anything until the documentation and everything is finalized. There's no way, right? And on their end, I understand as a buyer, I did the same thing. Like you need to make sure the key people are going to come to the company because they may leave if I don't get the key architect, technologists. What am I buying? I might be buying revenue and things like that, but in certain cases where the team is important, then they want to do it in advance. But there's that kind of a trade-off. So I will make sure, I would recommend keeping it as at the end as much as possible.
Well, as long as, we're talking about employees, but also the diligence process. Big companies, I call it the mice of men effect, right? They want you, they love you, and they might crush you in the process, right? And diligence they ask for everything. They want to know everything. And you want to sell the company, so your first inclination is, I will give you everything because you're giving me money, right? But at some point you have to push back and you have to have some boundaries. How have you seen that? Whether it's talking to employees or I want this information and just kind of saying, no, I'm not going to do that.
So first of all, to entrepreneurs out here, for the love of God, please keep your documentation in order, because if you're going to sell the company one day, you'll need to present every single piece of paper you've ever signed, and it needs to have both signatures on it, not just one. And you might need to track down a lot of people. And I forgot the initial question.
When do you say no? Because it's because they want everything, and if you say yes, they'll keep asking for more.
Yeah. So yes, you're right. That's a touchy topic. Please send us your source code. Well,
no.
No.
Yeah. But I mean, they will ask because they can ask, so they will ask for anything. And I don't think there's a very simple answer there. You just need to know, as you said, the deal can fall through at any time. So don't give out all your cards. Don't put all your cards on the table.
Yeah, I think there's the what do you want to keep to the cards you want to keep close just to make sure that the deal happens and the things are revealed in the right order. I think one new dimension for me in this recent transaction was psychologically, it's quite different that when you're talking about things that matter to the company, and as a CEO, you have this obligation to think about those things first, but you get to some contractual stages where you're looking at 40 pages of warranties that you as a founder need to personally give. And that kind of changes the perspective on things. Like you're looking at, okay, have I sufficiently disclosed this information that in 3 years I will not be liable personally for X amount of money or something like that. And so I think that was one point where we found the lawyers to be super useful because the buyer can ask for anything, and that's where the experienced lawyer will tell you that, okay, this stuff is customary, at this structure of a deal, this thing is an overkill, let's just, before you even go into that conversation, let's rake through it and see what are the real contentious things that it's sensible for them to understand, and let's deal with those. And that's something, especially even if you've done it a few times, like the good lawyer has done it for hundreds of times, and that's very useful to know. Yeah,
I think when we're all emailing, we're sending questions, and I think, so I've been writing a book, and they're not sure if it's a self-help book or a business book about the psyche of an entrepreneur. So a lot of my questions I sent out were very touchy-feely. But one of the things I think there is a dynamic when you're negotiating for yourself, and you're also negotiating for your company. So there might be an earn-out, an employment agreement. How have you balanced that? Because I've been in situations personally where I have to wear both hats. Maybe the deal, like you were talking about, you're maybe close to filing bank. The company's worth is less than maybe my worth, and I have to look out the total comp of what I'm going to get out of it, not just my shareholders. How have you balanced that, the me versus me as an individual? What's my next job? What's my role? What does this do for my career? Versus, is it good for the company?
For me, it's personally touchy topic, as by the time we sold the company, the founders had around 3% left. So already more than a year before, I had told my investors that by the time we get to the exit, there's obviously my shares won't be won't have any significant value. The only thing that the founders will be focusing on will be exit negotiations. We blew the exit negotiations a little bit. We did manage to negotiate a pretty good deal out of this, but we blew some of our relationships with the VCs. However, out of the alternative deals that were on the table, we chose the deal that benefited the investors over the one that benefited us more. As on the other hand, I'm going to be doing the next company and then the next company, and everybody should be winning in this game if I want to win my next game.
Right, ideally.
I mean, yeah, it's a touchy one. It's the last Anvato was fairly good because we owned the majority of the company.
Okay.
It was very few investors, and on the other ones though, like similar to what you said, it becomes really challenging. You have single-digit percentage ownership of an entrepreneur who can, protect. Wants to make money after 5 to 10 years of all the sweat and tears, and it's. As an investor, this is the reason you want a banker.
Yeah.
Right? You want someone who is responsible to the board, independent of the entrepreneur, so I can get a better outlook into what's happening, so I can understand the dynamics, because that guy is going to be more independent from that angle, more independent than the CEO. And then obviously, that kind of a banker also has his own problem of the transaction fees and things like that. But in terms of negotiating the earnouts, how do you kind of push, so you have $10 million I allocate to buy a company as a buyer, and I'm okay actually giving that $8 million as an earnout or a retention package to the entrepreneur, because I don't care about the investors. I give them $2 million, so they get their $2 million. $2 million is shared within the common share with the shareholders. The $8 million stay as a retention package to the entrepreneur. Investor gets screwed, right? Or vice versa. As an investor, I want $8 million to be coming as the earnout plus the main principal, $2 million as a retention. So it's a tough topic, and banker actually helps the board and investors to solve that problem a little bit.
So as an entrepreneur, don't hire a banker.
Yeah.
In our case, that wasn't an issue. The interests of founders versus the company. For some reason, I think the reason might have been that there was the Climate Corp didn't have nothing in Europe, so they needed to buy the whole market. They needed to buy a working team here, and they needed to incentivize the founders to keep on working in the company in pretty much the same positions, and so it was all good. I wouldn't say that it was an issue.
I think for me I negotiated quite a lot for my investors. I negotiated quite a lot for my team, and both of those deals became better through the process. What I took personally was pretty much what was offered at first. So I didn't spend much time there, especially when you do a deal that is structured for the future.
Yeah.
Then you know that it's up to my performance now, and it's kind of like when you step from a founder role to a employee role, then you know that you're going to be on a market where you're worth the market, and the upside is what you work for. So.
How are we on time?
Unfortunately, no. Sorry. We've gone over. It's been a great panel. Thank you very much. It was a good panel. Thank you, KP.